All right, good evening, everybody. Chuck Holton here, coming to you from Erbil, Iraq, northern Iraq tonight. And Israel is, as we speak, pounding the port of Hodeidah in Yemen. I've got the map up here. You see the map of Yemen. We're going to talk about what's going on in this back and forth between Israel and the Houthis of Yemen, because this is obviously retaliation for what happened yesterday at Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv. A Houthi cruise missile landed about 300 meters from the terminal at the port there in, I'm sorry, at the airport in Tel Aviv. And this cruise missile came all the way from Yemen. So you're talking about 2,000 kilometers, 1,300 miles or so. Fairly accurate in that it actually hit the airport. And they're now saying that even though they did pick up the missile coming in and they did try to shoot it down with both an American THAAD missile system and an Israeli Arrow system as part of the Iron Dome, that both of those malfunctioned. And that's very rare. The Iron Dome system shoots down 95% of the missiles that get fired at Israel, or at least those that need to be shot down. They don't shoot down missiles that are calculated to land in unoccupied areas. And but this one definitely should have been shot down, but it was not. So it represents the first time that the Houthis have actually been able to strike at Israel with a missile that was not shot down or landed somewhere else. I believe this is the first time, other than the drone that they sent that came in off of the Mediterranean Sea and was aiming for the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, or the consulate, or whatever you call it, uh, and hit an apartment building and killed one gentleman, one Israeli guy. But other than that, this is the first time that a Houthi cruise missile has actually evaded uh, being shot down and landed on its target. Now, thank God it didn't land 300 meters the other direction, because if it had hit the terminal was very full of people. There's lots of video out about that. You can see that over at chuckholton.com. But the if it had hit that terminal, that missile, I calculate, had about a 300-pound explosive warhead that would have easily killed dozens, if not hundreds, of people inside the terminal. So just thank God for the miracle that that terminal did not get struck. But and there were some injuries. The injuries were by and large from people that tripped on the way to the shelter, something like that, dropped something, or got just minor injuries. Nobody killed, thank God. But after that strike, Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said, whoever hurts Israel will be hurt sevenfold. This is their motto at this point. And so we knew that a retaliatory strike was coming, at least on Yemen and maybe on Iran. We're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. Thank you for being with us tonight on CBN News YouTube channel. I do these live updates on a recurring basis. I also do them daily over at my own YouTube channel, The Hot Zone with Chuck Holton. So you can go over there and subscribe and get more of this kind of explanations and commentary on the wars and disasters that are happening around the globe. I'm coming to you right now from, like I said, northern Iraq. Yesterday morning, I was in Syria, and I just spent the last week in Syria covering the conflict there. And there's a lot to talk about with what's going on in Syria. I can cover that at the end if we have time. If you have questions, folks, please put those questions into all caps in the chat box, and I will try to get to them as we go along here. I'm keeping it covered right now because it's too distracting, and I can't complete a sentence if I'm seeing all the comments flying by. But if you put it in all caps, I will scroll back through there and hopefully find your question and answer it here toward the end. So, what happened tonight? The Israeli Air Force struck the port at Hodeidah. So, we're going to go down here on the map and we're going to look at the port at Hodeidah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this. Now, this is Hodeidah here. Right there is the port. And this port has been struck multiple times already by Israel and by the United States. The port is essentially it's hard to, I mean, it's hard to blow up a port, because what is a port except just a place where ships can pull up to the shore, right? So they're not going to, they can flatten all the buildings at the port and a ship can still pull up there. They can knock over all the cranes at the port, and so it'll be harder to unload the ship, but it's still not impossible. They just put a ramp over and drive it over with the drive trucks onto the ship, load it up, bring it back. The ships themselves have cranes on them. So there's there's not a lot to destroy there, but they have destroyed anything of consequence at the port by this time. Now, the Israelis have struck Yemen 6 times since the war started. This is the sixth. And this is the first time this year that Yemen has been struck directly by the Israelis. As a matter of fact, the Israelis have been just sort of ignoring them and shooting down whatever missiles come their way, because they're just kind of a sideshow. I mean, if every one of Yemen's missiles struck Israel, it'd be a great tragedy, but it's not going to stop Israel. It's not going to make Israel crumble. It's not going to destroy the country or anything like that. There it's a war of annoyance against Israel more than anything else. Now, it is costing Israel some billions of dollars a year in lost revenues, because if we go over here, zoom out there a little bit, and we go up here to Israel, and this is wrong side, wrong side. Hello, Suez over here. You get the port at Eilat right down here. This port is empty. And this port normally has several $billion a year of products, agricultural, mining products, things like that, that come to this port and go out to the rest of the world. Well, that port has gone bankrupt and is closed, and there's nothing coming in there right now. And that doesn't mean that all the things that would have gone out of that port are not going out of Israel. They just take it to the port at Ashdod or Ashkelon, I mean, or even Haifa or Tel Aviv, whatever, and they just ship them out of a different port. It's just more trucking for whatever those products would have been. So there is a cost to it. There are people who have lost their livelihoods because of this blockade of shipping, but it's not crushing Israel. As a matter of fact, it's hurting Egypt much worse than it's hurting Israel. It's also hurting Jordan much worse than it's hurting Israel. It's hurting Saudi Arabia worse than it's hurting Israel. So all of these other Muslim countries, and in Jordan's case, a Palestinian Muslim country, are being damaged economically much worse by the Houthi blockade than Israel is. And that's kind of the way it goes. Obviously, Yemen is also being pounded from the air. The United States has now been striking Yemen every night for more than 50 nights. Night before last, they had 50 different strikes, 50, in one night. Yesterday, I think it was more like 20. We'll see how many there are tonight with these ones added in from Israel. But let me just try to put this in perspective for you, because you might wonder, like, we've been bombing the snot out of these people down in Yemen for nigh on 2 months now, and there's still missiles coming every day, just about heading toward Israel. They're still shooting at U.S. Navy vessels that are offshore. They haven't managed to sink any of those, thank God, or even really damage anything. But still, it's not stopping or even really, you know, bothering the Houthis all that much. As a matter of fact, the Houthis kind of like it because it gets them. Well, just hello, hello. Oh, it says excellent connection. There, I think we are back. Okay. Yeah, you might have to restart. Okay. Yeah, you might have to restart, folks. Sorry about that. Uh, all right. So, sorry, my Starlink, which is on that truck back there behind me, just died. We're having a dust storm here in Iraq, and so the weather's been really bad, and it makes it the Starlink has a hard time penetrating dust. It does okay with clouds and rain and things like that, but dust not so much. And there's a lot of dust in the air tonight. So if you restart your, or I'm sorry, refresh your page, you should be fine if I'm locked up still. Okay, so what I was saying is that the Houthis like to get airstrikes because it gets them publicity. It makes them the cool kids on the block. The Houthis uh, feel relevant when they're getting pounded by the United States uh, or Israel. There's like, yes, our whole life, our whole worldview is centered around being at war with the Jews and the United States. And so if we can bait them into beating up on us, then we can feel like we're doing something to get their attention, and we're happy about that. Keep in mind, the Houthis have been un, uh, undergoing or suffering under airstrikes since 2014, pretty much constantly. Everything in Yemen has been airstruck at this point. The Saudis were striking Yemen for years, like 5 years, every night. They were at war with the Houthis. The UAE has been striking, and those guys just finally gave it. Like there's only so much sand that you can blow up before you realize that it's kind of a fool's errand, and that's what the Saudis eventually realized about this. Um, Bombing the port at Hodeidah is more symbolic than anything because there are 1,200 kilometers. If you look at the map here, there's 1,200 kilometers of shoreline in Yemen. Okay. And I mean, up here. And so there's any number of places where a ship could come in and they could transfer weapons from Iran or whatever in little dhows, these smaller boats, and transfer them to shore. There's protected coves and things in there where ships could come in and offload if they wanted to. So bombing the port again at Hodeidah is really more symbolic than anything. Now, what's surprising to me is I read an article yesterday where the Houthis were evacuating the airport in Sana'a, the international airport in Sana'a, because they were afraid it was going to get struck. And I was like, wait, what? There's still anything that's not a smoking crater at the airport in Sana'a, the capital of Houthi held territory in Yemen? I know we've bombed the airport before. Why has that airport not been completely flattened? Are there any electric lights on in Yemen? Why are we not bombing those lights? I mean, why are not we not bombing the electrical infrastructure and the because look, A government stays in power by providing services to its people. If you remove its ability to provide services for its people, then it's going to make it harder for the government to stay in power. That's just common sense. However, the Houthis have been suffering in such conditions since, like I said, 2014 at the very least. More than 400,000 people have died of starvation in Yemen in the last 10 years. 400,000. They've had airstrikes for years, every night. So they probably sleep right through them. I saw a video a while back of one of the airstrikes that the United States did, and it was captured from a security camera in a cell phone repair shop or something in Sana'a. And so the shop owner is sitting there at the little counter and he's messing with his phone and Facebook. And you see this gigantic fireball outside the door, just past him, outside the door. And a second later, the shockwave hits and like blows everything off the shelves in his, in his little shop there. And he never even skipped a beat. He just kept surfing Facebook. Like it didn't phase him at all. It's unbelievable for, anybody in the civilized world to imagine, but it's the truth. The people in Yemen are so inured to war and hardship and starvation and lack that they're just going to keep going. They're just not going to pay attention. And so it's going to take ground forces to push the Houthis out. Now, obviously, the United States is not going to send ground forces in bulk, lots of ground forces anyway. What do you think? Would you like to see the United States put troops on the ground in Yemen? Yes or no? Put that in the chat box there. This is not common sense. Please, why should people suffer for the few stupid leaders? Well, that's how it works. Your leaders set the policy for your country, and that policy will determine whether or not the people in the country have to suffer. It's not fair, but it's real life. And it's something that every country ought to take to heart. When you watch what our Congress critters are doing up in Congress, you should be like, wow, people actually elected folks that were that dumb. Like you see some of those people, and I'm not going to name any names, but I mean you don't have to look far. I'm not making comments on one party over another or anything, but you don't have to look far in the US Congress to find somebody that's got the IQ of a kumquat. And we voted for them. They got voted into office, and all of us, those who voted for them and those who didn't, have to suffer the consequences of the poor decisions that they make. Well, that works in Yemen as well. And when you center your entire country, including the flag, around who you hate, if your whole worldview, your whole objective in life is to destroy the Jews or attack America or anybody, you can't have nice things. That's how the world works. It might not be fair for those poor children that I just feel terrible for, who are suffering in Yemen right now, starving to death, who can't have a normal life. But if the clowns that are running that country think that it's more important to put their time and effort into building missiles that will reach Israel rather than putting their time and effort into doing something positive for their own country, well, they get what they get. It's It's terrible, it's tragic, but it's true. Question, is Israel still attacking in Damascus? Uh, they are not that I know of right now. I just did a live over at the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton here on YouTube earlier tonight about the strikes that they did in Damascus. They dropped 2 bombs right next to the presidential palace as a warning to HTS to leave the Druze alone. And they also struck some convoys and stuff that were in that area. There were about 5 different airstrikes that the Israelis did in Syria. While that was happening, the Turkish army or Air Force sent a couple of jets into Syria and approached the area where the Israeli planes were operating and sent them an electronic message warning them that they were there. And as I said on the live over on my channel, where we kind of broke this all down, that might have been a provocation or kind of a flex on Israel, or it might have just been a like, hey, we're up here watching, don't shoot us, please. It's something called deconfliction, which happens all the time. So there's not enough information yet to know exactly what that was. Okay. What about the Jordanian? Which Jordanian are you talking about? I understand. What is going on in Iran with all these explosions and fires and factories, et cetera, for missile research and manufacturing? Benjamin Lefton says. Yeah, there are a whole lot of unfortunate accidents happening across Iran right now. The port, we can go over here and look at the map. Let's see here. Let's go to Iran. This port over here, just across from Dubai and Bandar Abbas, just spontaneously combusted the other day and caused a massive, practically nuclear explosion and caused about $2 billion in damage to the port. That was because they were storing an explosive substance called sodium perchlorate at the port without any safety protocols, likely because they were trying to hide it from view. Now, they hadn't done a good job of hiding it because the US and other intel agencies around the world knew that it was there and knew that it was likely, that they were trying to hide it. That was meant to go to make rockets, as rocket fuel for more missiles to shoot at Israel. And gosh, wouldn't you know it? It just accidentally blew up. Well, then there was a bicycle plant that went up in smoke a few 100 miles north of there. That bicycle plant, as it turns out, was making things that sounded, I'm sorry, motorcycle plant, making motors that sounded exactly like the motors in the Shahed 136 drones. Huh. Imagine that. I mean, the exact. And they're the exact same size as the motors in the Shahed 136 drones. Gosh, that's interesting. And that, boy, somebody was smoking. Maybe the night watchman, was smoking, flicked a cigarette, and the whole plant just went up in flames, still smoking. Man, it's unfortunate. There's just too many people that are smoking cigarettes these days, I think, in Iran. Now, some people are saying that this is the Mossad or the Israelis, but uh, who can say? Seems to me like if you're storing sodium perchlorate, 300 tons of it in a commercial port that, it's got a lot of other products, man, you just never know what might come into contact with that stuff and make it go kablooey. Sorry. So we send our condolences to the owners of the port and the owners of the motorcycle plant and all the other things that are just spontaneously combusting across Iran. That's just really unfortunate for them. Don't know what to tell you. But I think if you read between the lines a little bit, you can figure it out for yourself. Don't you think? So that's the deal. Now, boom. We got 3,700, 3,900 people online, only less than 1,000 likes. Please go hit that like button. Oh, man, don't do that again. Come on, Starlink. Waiting on the Starlink. Excellent connection. Okay, there we go. All right, so sorry about that. Again, dust storm can't really be helped. The Starlink is struggling tonight. But back to the topic here. Uh, we need to give the Starlink a name and talk sweetly to her. Okay, Mama Marissa, you come up with a name for the Starlink. Uh, let's see. But yeah, I was just mentioning we got over 3,000 people watching, and you need your reminder to go hit that like button. Otherwise, the Starlink's going to disconnect again. So please hit that like button, folks. And if you want to keep us out here working in the field and help pay for that Starlink, you can go to cbn.com and donate over there. We do a lot of good for a lot of people around the world with those donations. So I recommend that you go to that link that Mama Marissa just put up, CBN donations, securegiving.cbn.com. Okay, so Donald Trump is going to be visiting the Middle East this coming week. He's not going to Israel, but he is going to go to Saudi Arabia and meet with all of the major players in the Middle East, at least that are not enemies. So Qatar, he's going to meet with the UAE, and might even have a moment to meet with the leader of HTS, apparently. That was reported a while back. That may have changed now because HTS is sort of showing itself, showing its true colors, which its true colors look a lot like ISIS. So there's that. But Israel has told Hamas, if you don't make a deal to return our hostages by the time Donald Trump leaves, then we are done negotiating. Point, period, end of story. And we are going to completely occupy Gaza forever for the indefinite future. Okay? We are going to, Israel is saying they're going to move troops into Gaza in their tens of thousands, and they're going to take every square inch of territory in Gaza and flatten it. And they're doing it. This has been their strategy since the 19th of March when the ceasefire fell apart, is just to go, we are going to destroy and occupy more of Gaza every day until we get our hostages back. There's 59 hostages left, and 24 of those are likely still alive. And Israel says, that's it. We're calling up all the reserves and we're bringing everybody we got into Gaza and we're going to party. And Gaza is never going to be the same again. So if you want any part of Gaza to still be standing a year from now, you'd better release those hostages. You know what? Why didn't they do that at the beginning? This is what just boggles my mind. Why go halfway if they've got a couple of hundred of your people held hostage in Gaza after October 7th? Why take it in half steps? You know, I mean, I guess they thought they were going all in when they went in October of 2023. But I mean, I don't think they ever had more than 40 or 50,000 troops in Gaza. And now They may have twice that. I mean, I don't know, but they are going to completely fill Gaza with, uh, you know, IDF troops, and they are going to push more and more people out of their homes. They're going to destroy those homes, and those people aren't going to have anywhere to come home to. At some point, you would think that the Gazans would go, I've had about enough of this, and I think I want to go somewhere else. So I just need to figure out where they're going to send them. And so until that happens, people in Gaza can't have nice things. And we feel bad for them, especially the children who have had to suffer. But if your leaders are, clowns in a goat rodeo, then you're going to have a bad life. And at least here in America, we have the ability to vote them out. They don't really have that ability in Syria or in Gaza. They've held elections, sure, but this guy Shara that is now leading Syria. I want you to make note of this, folks. No, not Siri. My phone's like, how can I help you? Um, this guy Al Jalani or Al Shara, the new guy that's leading HTS in Syria, he's a straight up ISIS fighter. And his Al Nusra Front was kicked out of Al Qaeda for being too radical, right? So this guy's a jihadi. And I've seen some news outlets starting to call him the new president of Syria. Folks, he's not the president of Syria. And if you see that in the news, I want it to put up a red flag in your brain and go, I can't really trust anything that I'm hearing from this news outlet because that guy is not the president of Syria. The Syrians have not had an elected president in probably 50 years. Not a legitimately elected president. And this guy is never going to be the elected president, even if he held elections, because although 60% of the people in Syria are Sunni Muslims like him, they're not all going to vote for him. They don't like him that much. And believe me, all of the other factions, the Alawites, the Druze, the Kurds, the Yazidis, the Christians, none of those people are going to vote for a jihadi in their presidential palace. So that guy will never be president of Syria. But yet, many outlets of the mainstream media are calling him the president. And some governments are trying to recognize him as the legitimate president of Syria. Well, the fact that you rode in there with armored vehicles and a bunch of your jihadi buddies and took over the presidential palace and made the dictator flee, that doesn't give you the right to call yourself the president. You're not. Just a kind of a pet peeve of mine, really. There. I mean, that's just nuts. All right, folks, let's see what other questions we got here. Visit us in Southern California, Michael Michael Motan or Moran. Well, I'd love to visit you. Set up a speaking engagement at your church or something and have me out to speak. You can get my contact info here. I'll put the link in HTTPS link TRE/Holton. There's a link right there where you can get my books and my movies and other things if you want to get that. I'd also recommend you go to chuckholton.com. You can subscribe over there for extra updates and things that you can't get on YouTube, like videos that would get us demonetized and things like that. We're going to be very shortly releasing my new documentary on chuckholton.com. So you're going to want to be a paying supporter so you can get access to it. So the question is this strike by Israel tonight on the Houthi port at Hodeidah just window dressing? Is it just a tit for tat? And I'm afraid the answer is yes. I'm afraid that Israel decided we got to do something, we got to do it fast to poke them in the eye and make sure that they understand that they can't get away with this. And they went and blew up a port that's already been blown up 6 times and didn't blow up the international airport. That's mind-boggling to me. Why? It's still standing. There's a terminal, there's a control tower. Blow those things up. But no, they hit the port, which they've hit multiple times before. So what do you do with that? I don't know. That I guess it means that is Israel now going to go, all right, we're good, or are they still planning something with Iran? I think that's going to be a topic of discussion between President Trump and some of these leaders over the weekend. But based on the number of troops that the United States has arrayed around that area, that's now the largest deployment of U.S. troops since the beginning of the war on terror, or I'm sorry, yeah, the global war on terror in 2003 in Iraq. It looks like the United States is still preparing to strike at Iran. Now, the only way to really make the Houthis irrelevant again, MHIA, Mahia, not MAGA, Mahia, make Houthis irrelevant again. The only way to do that is to shut off the pipelines of weapons and cash coming in from Iran. And the only sure way to do that would be to strike Iran itself and to strike it so hard that its economy crumbles. Because once its economy crumbles, then the government of Iran won't have a legitimate claim to being able to take care of their people. And that's what needs to happen. I guess we'll have to wait and see if Israel and the United States have the political will to do what needs to be done to actually bring this whole thing to a conclusion. Now, I don't think that this is going to be much of a escalation here. They can pound the Houthis all day long, and the Houthis just don't care. Do you know if there's any interleak or integration between Arrow and its levels and THAAD? Did both systems fail in their communication, their interception, or just one? I guess from what I understand, they fired interceptors from both the THAAD system and the Arrow system, and both missed for whatever reason. Some on Twitter, some people were saying that's because it's a new kind of hypersonic missile that travels at Mach 20. No, that's not true. It was not some newfangled hypersonic missile. It was just a technical fault in the missile system that caused it to miss. And that doesn't happen often, but it happened this time. And this is the problem. Well, we can leave it with this. Israel has to be right every time to protect their people. The Houthis only have to be right once. They only have to get it right one time. And they'll, if that missile had been 300 meters the wrong direction from where it landed, there would be a lot of funerals taking place this weekend in Israel. Thank God he protected the terminal at Ben Gurion. Now, several airlines have suspended service to Ben Gurion, and the Houthis got a great idea from that and said, yes, we're now enforcing an aerial blockade of Israel. No planes are allowed to land in Israel anymore. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work because everybody realizes that this was a one in 100 at least chance. The Houthis do have the ability to strike at Ben Gurion, but the vast majority of those strikes are going to get shot down before they even enter Israel. So the concern in Israel is warranted. But it's not as high as you might think. Okay. All right, folks. That's all I've got for tonight. We've been going 45 minutes. Again, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, you can go over to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton and subscribe over there. It's about 10:30 at night here in northern Iraq. And I just came back from a week in Syria reporting on the conflict there. And I've got some real good stuff to share with you. So you're going to want to be watching CBN News as much as you can over the next few weeks as these stories come out. And I just lost my Starlink again. Come on. Okay, we're back on now. Sorry, I was wrapping up there and the Starlink went off again. I think there's might be some other issue with it. It seems to be a recurring problem, but I'll check into that later. Uh, Bottom line is, I wanted to say thank you for watching, and I wanted to pray before we go. So let's do that. If you'd join me in prayer, I'd really appreciate that. 3,500 people praying all at one time. God is definitely going to be in that, and we'll hear our prayers. Lord God, we just pray that you would thwart the plans of evil men across the globe tonight, that you would continue to protect Israel from the flaming arrows of its enemies, and that you would give the leadership in Israel the courage and the strength and the will and the discernment and understanding to do the right thing, no matter how costly or difficult it might be. Father, I pray that you would give us a sense of peace and strength ourselves as we continue to watch all this mayhem happening around the globe. Please watch over the American troops who are in harm's way tonight, some of them very nearby where I'm standing. And Lord, I pray for the children and the people who are suffering in Gaza, in Yemen, in Syria tonight. And I pray that you would provide for them just like you do for the sparrows. I don't know how, but you're big enough, God, to do that. So thank you so much for being our God and seeing past our iniquities and loving us like your own little children. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, folks, thanks for watching. And we will see you again next time. So take care.